Have you ever felt a quiet emptiness, even in the middle of a crowded room, surrounded by people who laugh, who smile, who claim to care, yet somehow you remain unseen? It's a common experience, one most people immediately try to fix with casual connections, dating, or endless conversations, believing that more attention, more charm, or more validation will fill the void. But what if that search, frantic and persistent, is exactly what keeps you from discovering something far rarer, far more profound? Before we go further, take a moment to subscribe, share, and comment. By doing so, you help this reflection reach other men who, like you, may be searching for meaning and depth in a world full of surface. The truth Alan Watts often pointed to is subtle, but revolutionary. Real friendship cannot be sought with the same urgency we seek romance. The world tells us that connection is about passion, excitement, and reciprocal desire, that intimacy is earned by proving ourselves worthy. Yet friendship, the kind that sustains, that watches and waits with calm presence, cannot be forced or seduced. It arises only when the restless self stops chasing and begins listening, observing, and accepting. This hidden law of human connection challenges everything we have been conditioned to believe about closeness and trust. Imagine a man who has pursued love endlessly, who has fallen in and out of relationships, thinking each romance might finally fill a void. He is admired, envied even, yet inside there is a sense of incompleteness that no compliment, no flirtation, no fleeting passion can erase. This is the same man who will later discover that the friendships worth having do not call for performance, for masks, or for conquest. They ask only for presence, honesty, and the courage to stand alone until the right soul finds him. In this video, we will explore why true friendship is rarer, why it is harder to find, and why, paradoxically, its scarcity makes it infinitely more valuable than any fleeting romantic adventure. And as you listen, consider this. Every time you have sought connection through charm or obligation, every time you have chased attention instead of authenticity, you have been training yourself for the wrong kind of intimacy. Real friendship is not about being needed, it is about being understood. It is not about being seen in the performance of life, but in the quiet honesty of being. In the following moments, we will unfold this truth step by step, and you may begin to see the difference between a world full of lovers and a world where true friends exist, waiting to meet the man who finally ceases to chase. Before the awakening, life often felt like a relentless pursuit of approval, a string of fleeting pleasures and empty encounters that promised connection but delivered only exhaustion. The man moved through the world expecting to be seen, expecting that charm and effort would create loyalty, expecting that attention would translate into lasting bonds. He believed that friendship, like romance, could be won, conquered, or manufactured through the right gestures, the right words, the right image. And yet, time after time, he noticed the pattern. Acquaintances vanished when convenience faded, promises dissolved when desire cooled, and he was left to face the quiet truth that the connections he sought with such urgency were fragile, superficial, and conditional. Then came the subtle shift, the moment of insight that Alan Watts describes, when the man begins to see beyond the frantic chase. He notices that every genuine bond he has experienced emerged not from effort, but from authenticity. True friends appear not when he performs, impresses, or seduces, but when he is still, when he allows himself to simply exist without expectation. In these rare encounters, there is no need for pretense, no agenda to manage, no fear of inadequacy, only the simple recognition of presence and understanding. The contrast becomes stark. The world of romance and validation offers constant motion, excitement, and illusion, while the world of authentic friendship moves quietly, deliberately, and with a depth that cannot be hurried. As this awareness grows, The man begins to withdraw from superficial pursuits, not out of arrogance, but from clarity. The invitations, the fleeting flings, the easy admiration, they no longer hold the same allure because he realizes they cannot nourish the soul. And in that withdrawal, paradoxically, he becomes visible in a new way. Those who are genuine are drawn not to performance but to honesty. They arrive, unbidden, unhurried, ready to share presence rather than expectation. The world around him may see distance, aloofness, or strangeness, but inside, a quiet expansion occurs. The man learns that the effort to be liked, to be desired, to be followed, is not what creates lasting connection. What matters is the courage to be oneself, fully, without apology or manipulation, and yet this is only the beginning. The awakening to the rarity of true friendship changes the lens through which all other relationships are perceived. Moments that once seemed painful, the loneliness, the rejection, the failure, are now seen as necessary clearing, as the natural pruning that prepares space for the right souls to enter. He begins to recognize that the world does not owe him friendship, that it never promised ease, but that in letting go of expectation, he finds a form of freedom more profound than any fleeting romance. This shift lays the foundation for a life where bonds are earned through presence, trust, and shared authenticity rather than through charm, performance, or desire. The man begins to question everything he once took for granted about human connection. He notices the silent agreements that govern most relationships, the expectation to perform, to entertain, to maintain a facade of competence and charm. Society whispers that we must be likable, desirable, and constantly engaged, that approval is the currency of belonging. He realizes how much of his energy has been spent chasing these illusions, how his desire for friendship has been filtered through the lens of status, popularity, and expectation. In truth, these structures create only temporary attachments, bonds that dissolve the moment effort fades or convenience shifts. By examining these foundations, he sees that much of what he believed about closeness was a lie, a script written by fear and habit rather than by authenticity. Once this awareness takes hold, a subtle but profound transformation begins. He stops participating in the shallow dances of social obligation, the small talk, the performance of friendship as it is commonly understood. By no longer trying to impress or please, he discovers that real connection starts to emerge naturally. The walls of pretense fall away, revealing a space where honesty and presence can flourish. Those who are drawn into this space are not drawn by charm, by manipulation, or by temporary utility, but by the rare resonance of truth, by the recognition of a man who has chosen clarity over acceptance. And in this withdrawal, in this refusal to play by the old rules, he experiences a freedom that was impossible when he sought connection on someone else's terms. The tension between appearance and essence becomes increasingly visible. Others may whisper that he is distant, detached, or difficult. They may misinterpret his honesty for arrogance or his independence for isolation. But inside, he is neither distant nor lonely. He is grounded, self-aware, and fully present. The contradiction between how the world sees him and how he experiences himself grows more pronounced. Yet it is precisely this tension that confirms the authenticity of his journey. He learns that genuine friendship requires courage, patience, and the willingness to embrace solitude, to wait until souls arrive who are aligned not with his image, but with his essence. Through this lens, the man begins to reinterpret what he once feared. Silence, solitude, and lack of attention, these are no longer signs of failure or rejection. They are the crucible in which clarity is forged, the quiet spaces where depth grows, the necessary absence that allows authentic connection to emerge. By understanding that the world's judgments are not measures of his worth, he finds an inner steadiness that transforms every interaction. He moves among people without neediness or performance, and in doing so, he becomes magnetic, not for what he offers superficially, but for the presence and honesty he embodies. The man now sees loneliness not as a curse, but as a doorway. What once felt like emptiness, like failure or exclusion, is reframed as a sacred pause, a space in which the self is purified and sharpened. He discovers that true companionship cannot be imposed or hurried. It emerges only when one is whole enough to be comfortable alone. Desire, once a restless pursuit of approval and attention, is no longer a desperate plea for recognition, but a quiet signal guiding him toward authenticity. Romantic longing, the constant chase, is now understood as a teacher, showing the limitations of surface connection and pointing towards the rarer substance of friendship. He begins to see the world differently. Every encounter, every conversation, every gesture carries a dual meaning. On the surface, ordinary interactions; beneath, the subtle resonance of truth and compatibility. A smile is not a contract, a compliment not a measure of worth. In this reinterpretation, what seemed trivial or fleeting reveals itself as a marker, a way of discerning who is aligned with his essence and who is entangled in illusions. Through this lens, he notices the contrast between the shallow and the profound, between bonds that evaporate and those that endure, and he learns to act with patience, discerning which connections deserve investment and which are best left untouched. The transformation reaches even deeper when he observes his own desires. Where before he chased approval or affection with anxiety and need, now he experiences clarity in intention. He no longer fears being alone, no longer dreads silence. What the world sees as withdrawal or detachment is in truth a man fully alive within himself, undistracted by superficial expectations, moving steadily toward meaningful bonds. He understands that weakness is often misinterpreted, that what seems like retreat or passivity is actually strength, the capacity to choose authenticity over popularity, depth over distraction. This new vision begins to shape life in subtle but undeniable ways. The man approaches relationships with a sense of calm discernment. He no longer confuses motion with progress, performance with intimacy, or attention with value. In every interaction, he measures not the applause or approval received, but the alignment of souls. Over time, the seeming paradox becomes clear. The solitude he once feared, the detachment others criticized, the patience he was forced to cultivate, all serve as the foundation for genuine friendship. And with this realization comes a quiet confidence, a liberation from the endless chase, a freedom to experience life without the chains of expectation or pretense. As the man walks this new path, the world begins to react in ways he did not anticipate. Friends, colleagues, and even casual acquaintances may regard him as distant, strange, or self-absorbed. Some may whisper that he has changed, that he has grown aloof or unapproachable. To the untrained eye, the very qualities that now define his authenticity appear as flaws. Yet beneath this perception lies a quiet truth. He is no longer driven by the need to please, to impress, or to be understood by everyone. His attention is focused not on appearances, but on presence, not on performance, but on essence. This divergence between external judgment and internal reality is where the real transformation manifests. Within this tension, he discovers an unspoken liberation. The man who once measured himself by how others saw him now moves unshaken through the currents of perception, approval, envy, misunderstanding. They no longer dictate his emotions or choices. What matters is the resonance of truth in his interactions, the depth of connection that cannot be fabricated or coerced. This clarity produces a subtle power, one that is invisible to the superficial but undeniable to those attuned to authenticity. He begins to attract those rare souls who value presence over pretense, understanding over validation, loyalty over infatuation. The very qualities others misread as detachment now serve as a beacon, guiding the right people toward him. The escalation of consequences continues beyond perception. Inside, he experiences freedom and peace that were once unimaginable. Where anxiety, neediness, and longing once defined him, there is now calm and clarity. Each choice, each interaction, is informed not by fear or desire for approval, but by discernment and self-knowledge. Externally, he may seem reserved, quiet, even enigmatic. Internally, he is fully engaged with life, fully awake to subtle currents, fully capable of forming bonds that endure because they are chosen, not demanded. The paradox becomes clear. His seeming isolation is the very mechanism that opens him to connection that is authentic and profound. In this stage, every fleeting disappointment, every misstep in relationships, every romantic failure is reframed. They are not marks of inadequacy, but teachers guiding him toward wisdom. Each setback in pursuit of superficial bonds highlights the difference between illusion and substance. In this way, the man gradually sheds the weight of expectation and learns the delicate art of discernment. Friendship, once elusive, now becomes a reflection of his own growth, an echo of his ability to be still, honest, and present. Through this process, he experiences the rare but unmistakable joy of finding a companion not because he sought one, but because he became the kind of man a true friend could recognize and value. As the man embraces this new understanding, the transformation permeates every corner of his life. The things that once demanded his constant attention, status, approval, superficial praise, begin to fade in significance. He no longer measures himself against the fleeting judgments of others, nor does he chase hollow recognition. Instead, his actions are guided by integrity and presence, by the quiet knowledge that the quality of a life is found in depth, not display. Each day becomes an exercise in authenticity, each interaction an opportunity to engage fully without attachment or expectation. The clarity he cultivates is subtle, yet profound, like the steady illumination of dawn spreading over a landscape long shrouded in shadow. Relationships begin to reflect this inner change. Where he once sought approval or validation, he now offers presence, understanding, and a rare kind of attention that is not transactional but profoundly human. He recognizes the friends who endure the test of time, those who remain when convenience, distraction, and superficiality would have driven others away. In this recognition, he experiences a quiet joy that does not rely on drama or spectacle, but emerges from the simple and enduring resonance of mutual understanding. Even encounters that seem ordinary now carry weight, for he is attuned to depth rather than surface. Every smile, every gesture of care, every shared moment is magnified by the patience and discernment he has cultivated. Externally, the world may still misinterpret him. Some see only distance, some perceive arrogance, while others sense a quiet mystery they cannot quite name. Yet this divergence between appearance and essence no longer troubles him. He understands that the depth he has cultivated is not meant for universal appreciation, but for the rare souls capable of perceiving it. This tension, the contrast between what is visible and what is real, serves as both a shield and a guide. It protects him from shallow entanglements and signals to kindred spirits that a connection grounded in truth is possible. He has become a magnet not for casual company, but for the authentic, the steady, the enduring. The inner landscape has shifted completely. Anxiety, longing, and fear of rejection dissolve into a steady confidence rooted in self-awareness and presence. Romantic failures, social missteps, and fleeting disappointments are no longer burdens but markers, reminders that only what is genuine endures. In this space, he finds not only friendship, but the strength to live fully, independently, and honestly. The paradox becomes apparent. What looked like isolation is actually liberation. What seemed like loss is now freedom. And what appeared as weakness is revealed as the quiet power of discernment and authenticity. Through this ongoing evolution, he has learned that the rarity of true friendship is matched only by its value, and that its arrival is always preceded by the courage to be oneself, fully and unapologetically. And so, the paradox reveals itself with clarity. What once appeared as solitude, as emptiness, or as failure is in truth the very soil in which authentic connection takes root. The man who seemed distant, withdrawn, or misunderstood has become whole, not through approval or romance, but through the courage to exist fully in his own truth. The friendships that now enter his life do so naturally, effortlessly, and with a depth that the pursuit of superficial bonds could never provide. In surrendering the chase, he has discovered the power of patience, presence, and discernment. What seemed like loss has become liberation. What appeared as weakness has transformed into quiet strength, and the loneliness he once feared has opened the door to enduring companionship. This understanding extends beyond friendship. It reshapes his entire perception of life. Every past rejection, every fleeting connection, every disappointment in love is reframed as guidance, a subtle teacher steering him towards substance rather than illusion. He sees now that the world does not measure worth in fleeting attention or charm, but in authenticity, presence, and the courage to remain true to oneself. He walks among others without seeking validation, yet he is never alone. The companions he attracts are drawn not to performance or desire, but to the resonance of his essence. In this way, the man's life unfolds not in chaos or pursuit, but in alignment, clarity, and the quiet joy of being fully seen by those who matter. If you have resonated with this reflection, take a moment to subscribe for more insights that illuminate the path to deeper understanding. Share this video with someone who may need to hear that real friendship, though rare, is worth waiting for and is found not in the chase, but in presence. And if you feel moved, leave a comment with your own experience, a story, or a thought about friendship and authenticity. Every comment enriches the conversation, giving life to a community of men who, like you, seek not mere connection, but the profound bond that comes from truth. In embracing this path, we learn that the rarest treasures are never pursued. They are recognized, received, and cherished because we have become worthy through our own clarity, courage, and presence.